What if you're feeling disconnected from your current reality, as if you're living a life that's no longer yours, but you can't quite step into the future you dream of yet? This feeling of being caught between worlds, the world that feels stale and suffocating, and the world that feels like your true calling, but isn't fully materialized yet, is something many of us experience on the journey to alignment. Today, I'm sharing what it's like to be in this in-between space, personally and professionally, and how embracing this limbo can be the key to unlocking your next level. Keep listening. Welcome to the Inner Magic Academy podcast. If you're loving our videos, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks and enjoy this episode. Welcome, I'm your host Peter Magic, and if you've ever found yourself feeling stuck in a place that no longer feels right, but you're unsure how to move forward, then this episode is for you, right? So for those of us who are creating new paths, especially for us that are starting to become more in alignment with our soul's purpose, right? So we're awakening more to our soul's purpose and we're following in our intuition, right? It can feel like we're living in two worlds at once. The old, outdated reality and the new, unformed future we're building towards, right? So today I'm going to talk about what it means to be in between and how this space can be a catalyst for transformation when you know how to navigate it. So the key themes we're going to discuss today is the discomfort of being stuck between two realities, what it feels like to be disconnected from your current job or life, yet deeply connected to a vision of your future, the process of transitioning from a life of obligation to a life of alignment, how to work with the tension of limbo instead of against it, and finding clarity in the midst of uncertainty. So let's dive in. The first segment we're going to get into is the void, right? So when the old life no longer feels right. And this is something that is deeply personal to me right here, right now, right here in this moment, because over the past 5 years, the amount of healing work, the amount of inner work I've done, the amount of things I've already shifted within myself and what I feel and sense within myself, that it's changed, right? But my outward environment and what's reflecting back to me hasn't, right? And so I'm in this in-between worlds feeling right now, right? I'm being pulled in this direction that's completely not aligned with what I know and I feel. And I have a deep sense of knowing of why I'm here. I know this now because of, reconnected to the mind of my soul. Through my intuition, I feel and I sense, and I know and I understand why I went through the experiences I did. Right, all of this makes sense now as to why I went through all of these experiences and all of these struggles, right? And I'm here to be a healer on the planet, and so I'm working towards creating the vision, right? Even though I don't fully have everything in front of me, like I don't see the whole vision, but I see, those pieces of the puzzle forming. And even though I'm feeling like I am moving towards that, I am creating that. I'm creating a podcast, I'm creating programs, and it feels like right now is the right time to start putting these things out there, because I've moved through so much and I've integrated so much, and how I'm articulating the things I'm talking about is more grounded and it makes more sense now, right? Because I've embodied that. And so now I'm on this journey of, I know what I want, and yet my outward environment, what's reflecting back to me, is pulling me in this other direction that's completely not aligned. Having to work a system job, having to spend most of my time in these environments and these places that are completely not aligned, and still having to walk that path, and still having to work towards and create the vision, that I really want, thing that I really want. And it's difficult because we live in this world of where our ego craves security and stability, right? It wants to stay in the familiar, yet the unknown, and connecting in that space of the unknown and opening yourself up to, allowing your soul to come into experience and to guide you onto your destined path, the path that is in the space of the unknown. You're not going to know everything that's in front of you, yet you continue to work towards that thing, right? That is when you start to, become more in alignment with your destined path, and the fated path, the one that's reflecting back to you, starts to feel completely unaligned, and you're no longer wanting to, continue to wear these masks, continue to pretend to be someone you're not, continue to do something that's completely not aligned with, why you're here, and you start to work towards that thing that you really want. And your outward environment is still reflecting back to you the reality that you really don't want, and you're being pulled in this direction. And it's almost like a game of tug of war that's going on, right? There's this energy battle of your ego and your nervous system, wanting to stay in the familiar, even though that familiar is completely unaligned. And you have your soul that wants to guide you in this direction that's more in alignment, that feels more in resonance, that feels more right. It feels more purposeful. It lights a fire within you, and that is the life that you're here to create for yourself, right? That is your destined path. And this podcast isn't about fate and destiny. There's another episode that I've created on that one, if you want to check that one out. But this is just about, the state of feeling like you're in between two worlds. You've done so much inner work. You've shifted so much, yet what's reflecting back to you is still not in alignment with what you know and you sense, right? And it can be such a struggle for you to continue to walk that path that's completely not aligned, and continue to pretend to be someone you're not, and being in those environments and doing those things, whatever job you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing, just you struggle to continue doing that, right? And this is the phase I'm in right now, and it's something that's deeply personal, something I thought I really want to share in this moment. So that contrast between the life that feels mechanical and a calling that feels electric, right? That's the tension of being between worlds, right? So it's disorientating, but the old world hasn't fully ended, right? And the new one hasn't fully landed. So this is basically, me still showing up, still trusting that even this limbo is, it's part of the becoming, it's part of the journey, right? So, what's reflecting back to us is just showing us what's not in alignment anymore. And it's like, do you really want to continue walking this path when you know this is completely unaligned? Or do you want to work towards and start to really be in alignment with the life that you're here to consciously create, and the life that is destined for you, that your soul, put you into this experience to awaken to, right? And that is what you're doing. You're collapsing those timelines. And so this can start to then, at some point, when you're fully aligned to that reality, you've fully embodied that, and you work towards that, it collapses into this timeline, and you then manifest that reality, right? This is part of the journey. So what does it feel like when the old life no longer suits you, right? You have this internal disconnect, right? The drag of spending time in a role or an environment that drains your energy, right? It could completely deplete you. And the pull to build something more aligned with your truth, right? So when you're in this role, you're working a job that completely drains you, completely feels unaligned, and when you have a vision, you have something that you want to create, something that you want to birth through, you start to see the pieces of the puzzle forming, and it lights you up, right? It lights a fire within you. And this is what's happening. There's this game of tug of war. Your what's reflecting back to you is just showing you the thing that's completely not aligned, and yet you're still having to walk that path in this world. And work towards and create the vision that you truly, it's truly destined for you, right? So you have this sense of dissonance, right? How our lives can feel out of sync when we're no longer in the right place, but don't know yet how to make the leap, right? So, we might have this vision that we want to create. We might have somewhat of our intuition pulling us in this direction, but we don't yet know how to make that leap because we're so used to our nervous system and our ego, so used to being in the space of the familiar, craving this safety and security, which is all an illusion, by the way, right? Because anything in your outward environment can change and shift, right? And you've got no control over that. And so this is what your ego and your nervous system wants to resort to. Stay in your comfort zone, stay in the familiar cycles, the familiar patterns. Even those familiar cycles and patterns, they're completely not aligned. And they're a fate, right? They're part of your fated path, right? So taking this leap, it can be full on because you need to trust the unknown. You need to trust your intuition. You need to trust the guidance of your soul, and you need to work towards that, even though what's reflecting back to you is completely unaligned, right? So the power of being in limbo, right? Why this is actually a potent space for transformation and how it invites deep soul alignment. Being in this limbo where, like I mentioned, you are in between worlds, what's reflecting back to you is completely unaligned. And yet you might not fully have a clear vision of what you really want, but you see the pieces of the puzzle forming in. It's still in the space of the unknown because your ego and your nervous system's craving this certainty, this familiar feeling, even though this life isn't for you. It's not aligned for you anymore. And you're being pulled in that direction, and you're still having to work towards that thing that you really want, even though what's completely unaligned is draining your energy, and then you're trying to find more of your life force energy to work towards and create the vision that you truly want, right? Because this is what it's like. This is the feeling. This is, you're being dragged, and you're still having to pick yourself up and work towards that vision that you truly want. Because unless you take action and work towards it, it's not going to, your reality is not going to change because you're not taking actionable steps to work towards that. So it's normal to feel in limbo. It's normal to not have all of, the whole picture in front of you. You're only going to have the one step at a time, and you have to continue to walk that, even though you've been pulled in this other direction, even though what's reflecting back to you is completely unaligned. You still have to continue to take those steps and continue to trust in your intuition, and continue to build on the relationship with your own soul. Because like a Wi-Fi signal, when your connection becomes stronger to the mind of your soul, right? That voice becomes more powerful, and you really, you start to become more in alignment with that. And eventually, because you're working towards it, you are creating that new world. And what's going to reflect back to you is going to be in alignment with what your destined path, right? So it's so important to honor that phase that you're in, being in limbo. It's part of the journey. And you're going to feel like a struggle, like it's a struggle to continue walking this path that you're currently on. And you're still having to create the vision that you're truly destined for, right? This is all part of the journey, and it's something I'm moving through right now so deeply. Like, this is reflecting back to me, it's becoming even more obvious what's not aligned, and it's becoming even harder for me to continue walking the path that's not aligned, right? So I'm doing everything it takes to build the vision that is destined for me. This is why I'm creating this podcast. This is why I'm putting these things out there because I'm working towards that, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to create that vision, to manifest the reality I'm destined for. And so, the world is starting to reflect what's in resonance, what's in alignment with my soul, and not this, what's not aligned and what's with the old and the familiar, right? So this is the journey of you breaking out of those and shifting your energy from the inside out and realigning with the mind of your soul, and really, it's all part of the journey. The journey is messy. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. It's not a straight line. And you're still having to continue to work towards the thing that you really want, even though there's this tug of war going on, right? And it's so important that you honor every aspect of your journey. This is part of it, and this is part of you becoming. The second segment we're going to get into is navigating the tension between where you are and where you want to be, right? So when it comes to the mental and emotional strain of holding two realities, right? It's so much for your brain to take on, especially if you're neurodivergent and you're ADHD, right? When you want something, you want it now. You want this instant gratification. You want this reality it's like, where is it? I've been working towards this thing and it's still not here. And this is what's going on. There's this tug of war. It's like the ego is looking for external proof. It's looking for, where are things on the outside reflecting, what we want. It's like, and it's not coming from a place of trust and alignment. It's coming from a place that's unaligned and that's forceful. And the more you stay in this, the more you continue to manifest the reality that's not aligned. And so there's so much going on, right? There's these two realities that are happening, and it can take so much of a toll on you, on your mental state and your emotional state. And it's so difficult for you to hold onto this old world and try to build a new one in this state when you're continuously overloading your system, right? And this is why you need to trust and to let go, and to know that things are unfolding as they're meant to for you, because you need to allow time for things to integrate. If you're just overloaded with things all at once, holding these two realities, it's impossible. You need to allow time for this new reality to birth through, and that means you need to, what's reflecting back at you with this old reality, it's going to feel completely unaligned, because it's forcing you to work towards the one that is aligned. And so then that old one just fades away, and the new one then manifests into your realities, right? So when it comes to, the discomfort of limbo, what it's actually doing, it's sparking your personal growth, right? This thing that feels unaligned, that's feeling so uncomfortable, this reality that's reflecting back to you, it becomes so hard for you to continue to walk that path. And this is why, it's forcing you to do what it takes to shift that reality, to make change consciously, and stop staying in the familiar space, in the space that's not aligned. It's meant to feel unaligned because it is unaligned. And so you're here to spark life, more life force into that new reality that you're creating. So you re-energize yourself, and you work towards, and you build that vision, that reality that's destined for you, right? And this is giving you an opportunity to break through. And what you're doing is you're embracing uncertainty, and it's part of stepping into a new version of yourself. This is all part of it. right? So you can't move forward until you fully embrace the process of letting go. So I'll share with you a personal reflection, right? When I started to gain more clarity, right, that really helped me step into the unknown, right? You know, so much has shifted and changed over the past 5 years, but if I look at myself 5 years ago, I started to become aware of and awaken to what I was here for, right? But I could only see pieces of the puzzle, like one step at a time, one thing in front of me. I didn't see the whole vision. And so as I've worked towards that, as I've walked that path, even though what's reflecting back to me is completely unaligned, I continue to walk towards that. And even though right now what's reflecting back to me is still not aligned, I know that what's happening behind the scenes energetically has changed so much, right? Things have changed so much from the inside. And the outside is now, it's giving it a chance to form into this physical reality, right? This is part of it. So it hasn't materialized yet into this dimension, but I know that I'm right now with creating this podcast, creating, my first program. Everything to me right now feels right, and I know it's meant to be, right? And the difference between now and a couple of years ago, when I was moving through things, I was still moving through it, and I wasn't ready to, I haven't yet integrated that into my, I haven't embodied that, right? Integrated and embodied it, and now I'm ready. And so even though what's reflecting back to me is completely unaligned, I know that it's only a matter of time that, my physical reality shifts and changes, and this new world is birthed through, right? So it's all part of the journey, and you've got to be patient. And even with my ADHD brain, still having to have more patience, having more faith and more trust that things are unfolding as they're meant to. And so the more I've trusted that, the more of a knowing, a sense, a feeling of trust, and it's created more stability for me, right? And that's the journey, is you're changing things from the inside out. And when you're creating that stability from having trust in the unknown, you're more comfortable being in that space, and the more you step outside of your comfort zone, the more you start to create change. And it's only a matter of time before that then shifts, right, from a physical sense in your reality, and the new timeline is birthed through. So when it comes to finding clarity and trusting the process of becoming, right, when you look at how to embrace the waiting period, right, instead of seeing the limbo as a frustrating waiting game, right, it's about learning how to lean into it with trust. So this requires you to have more patience, to practice more patience, and have more self-compassion as you're navigating the unknown, right? Because even though you've been pulled in this direction that's completely unaligned, you're in between worlds, and you might not fully see the vision that you want to create yet. You can only see one thing at a time yet. What you're being pulled into is there to reflect back to you what's completely unaligned, so you can start to step into the unknown, step outside of your comfort zone, step out of the familiar, step out of your faded path, step out of the thing that's no longer aligned, and it's becoming more noticeable for a reason, right? And you need to continue to trust in the unknown. You need to continue to have more patience, even though especially when you're someone who has an ADHD brain, you're looking for that instant gratification. You're looking for proof. You're looking for, things in your physical environment to, where is the thing that I truly want? And when you stay in this energy, it's coming from a place that's forceful, not trusting in the unknown, and you're staying in that familiar space. And you continue to manifest the fated path, and you continue to be in between two worlds. You know that what's not aligned, but you still continue. That still continues to reflect back to you. And so this is the journey that you're on. So how do you identify what needs to be released, right? The only way that you're going to identify these things is through this deep inner work, right? So you're required to shed the things, the roles, and environments that are no longer serving you. And you're learning to let go. And this isn't just physical, right? This is mental, this is emotional, and this is energetic. So you're being pulled in this direction. It's completely unaligned. What's reflecting back to you is not the reality that you truly want, but it is based on what's encoded within your DNA. It's based on, your nervous system and what your ego is familiar with. And so the energy that you're holding on to, the core wounds and the beliefs and the things that you're holding on to is keeping you on your fated path. It's keeping you in a limitation, and you continue to attract this reality and manifest this reality that is not what you really want. And when you start to awaken to and you become aware of what you truly want and what you're in alignment with, what your soul wants for you, you might truly want these things, but unless you change things from the inside out, unless you do this deep inner work, you're not going to shift out of your fated path. You're not going to shift. You're not going to collapse these timelines, and this old world that's not aligned for you is not going to fade away, and you're not going to manifest, birth through your creation and, this new world to physically manifest for you, right? So you need to continue to trust in your own journey, your journey, not focus on what other people are doing. And trust that your soul's only going to give you what you're ready for. But it's only when you open up to that more and you connect to that more and follow in your intuition and have trust in the unknown and know that you're not going to have all the pieces of the puzzle formed. You're going to only know one thing at a time. But the more you work towards that, the more you shift things, the more then, that world's going to collapse into this timeline and you're going to manifest what's truly destined for you, right? So when you're aligning your actions with your vision, right? The key to making the transition from in between to fully aligned, it's a conscious one. It's a purposeful one. So when it comes to, being in this limbo, you can still take inspired action that brings you closer to your true calling. Right? So being in between worlds, even though there's this energetic battle going on behind the scenes, even though you're being pulled in this direction that's not aligned, it's on you to take conscious action and work towards the thing that you want. And what's not aligned for you is going to become harder and harder for you to continue to walk that path. And it's happening for you. And you need to not be fearful of the unknown, and afraid of stepping outside of your comfort zone and stepping outside of this what's familiar and what will, you're going to be supported on your journey when you fully trust in your intuition. And it might not seem like it sometimes, but you are. And I'm learning to see that over the past 5 years, the amount of things that have shifted and changed for me, that I've always been supported. It's always worked out for me. And I'm getting closer and closer to birthing through the thing that I really want, and, my outer world to reflect that. Because I'm embodying that and I'm continuing to work towards it, even though I know what's reflecting back to me. It's forcing me to continue to walk this path in the unknown, and continue to trust in the unknown, and continue to have faith in that. And I know that it's all going to work out. And so it's up to you. It's up to you to continue to take this inspired action towards the thing you truly want, and not focus on what you don't want. Because if you focus on what you don't want, you continue to manifest that reality and follow your fated path, and you continue to be in between worlds, and you never actually give yourself a chance to transition into and manifest the reality that you're truly destined for. So what part of your life feels like it's no longer aligned with who you're becoming? And where do you feel that pull between two worlds? And how might embracing this in-between space actually help you release, the old to make room for the new? We're coming to the end of this episode, and I want you to start reflecting, on embracing the process of becoming, right? So when it comes to the power of holding space for change, right? So as you navigate being in between, right? Remember this, you are not stuck, you are evolving. This limbo is not a punishment, it's a portal to your next phase. So you got to learn to trust the process, even if you can't see the end result yet, right? So the discomfort is part of the growth, and you don't need to have all of the answers right now. You just need to keep showing up with the vision that's unfolding. So if you're feeling the tug of war between worlds, right? Remember that it's okay to be in transition. You don't have to have it all figured out. The only thing you need to do is to trust the flow and allow yourself to step into your truth, even if you don't fully know what that looks like just yet, right? So what I encourage you to do is take a moment today to reflect on the spaces you're inhabiting in your life. Are you still holding on to environments, people, or roles that no longer align with who you're becoming? And how can you begin to shift your energy toward the new, even if it's just in small, intentional ways? Thanks for being here with me on the Inner Magic Academy podcast. Remember, growth is a process, not a destination. Embrace the discomfort of limbo. It's leading you to the next chapter of your journey, right? So until next time, trust the in-between and honor the space that makes way for something more aligned for you. I love you. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel and give us a like or even a comment. It really does help so much in getting our work out there to the people who need it. We're so grateful for you being here, and we'll see you for the next episode.